now the time's come. We're here. And we're really excited. We're going to have 3.5 days of, I think, a great convention with a lot of energy, a lot of people getting to be here that weren't here before. But then the real work starts. Our goal is not to have anything end here at the convention, but actually the work begins after we leave here to make real all the wonderful things that we're going to talk about, all the inclusiveness that we're talking about here. It'll be hard work to make it real. Getting legislation, getting comprehensive immigration reform, ending mass incarceration, all of those things that we'll be talking about here we'll work to make them real. And it's going to take some effort and a lot of work with a lot of our allies and our partners, and we're excited about it. So having said that, I'll just open it up and you guys can start throwing.
There's been a drop, as we all know, union membership. Membership is rather low. You guys have explained consistently, very understandably, that a lot of that is due to these attacks on the labor movement. But recently you've been saying that you point a finger at yourselves, that the labor movement itself is taking so much blame. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I had a 7th grade teacher who always told me every time you point the finger at somebody, there's always 3 pointing back at you. And I think about that a lot. Well, you know, whenever I analyze what we've done, I have to ask ourselves, have we done everything right? The answer is no. Have we devoted the resources to organizing that we absolutely could, the maximum? The answer is no. So we haven't done everything right. And we have to look inward and correct those problems as well as looking outward. Now, we can still do everything right, and with the laws the way they are, they can still deny workers a voice on the job. And with the Supreme Court being the best champion of corporate America and equating money with dollars, you can be denied the voice in politics. You can deny the right to vote even. And so we're working hard on all those things. I want to look at ourselves and correct everything that we can internally, and then look externally and say these are also out there. I just don't think that we do have to look at ourselves, and I think we have to do that on a continuous basis. And if anything comes out of this convention, I hope it is that we look and embrace change, and we can say to ourselves, we're going to continue to analyze ourselves and change as we need to change.
I work with Money Out Voters In and the burgeoning movement to get money out of politics through a constitutional amendment. Given that you filed an amicus brief in support of Citizens United, but then 2 years later told the Ithaca Journal that it was a corrupting influence and really decried that position, what are you going to do to reverse that and make good on that past mistake?
Well, let's set the record straight first, because while you are entitled to your opinion, you're not necessarily entitled to your own facts. Yes, we filed an amicus, but what was it geared towards? Making sure that unions weren't treated differently than any other group. We also said, and we have continued to say, yes, we ought to get money out of politics. That money doesn't equal free speech. I do not believe that Jefferson and Hamilton were sitting around a table and one of them looked at the other and said, you know, Tom, I have $1,000 and you only have $100. That means I get 10 times more free speech than you. I don't think that was the intent. So we're going to work as best we can to try to rectify that. It may take a constitutional amendment, because this Supreme Court, as currently constituted, equates money with free speech. And that fundamental difference prevents virtually any kind of meaningful legislation from happening. That means we'll continue to have a system that is polluted with money.
Alex Burns with Politico. President Trumka, when you're talking about a more robust, sort of self-conscious, progressive movement, you're talking about potential disputes within the sort of liberal coalition about trade. How do you see the relationship between the AFL and the Democratic Party changing or evolving over the next couple of years?
Well, there are many representatives in the Democratic Party who are friends of labor. There are some that are acquaintances of labor, and there are some that are really, I guess, less than acquaintances. We're going to continue to work with our friends, and by the way, we have a whole lot more friends in the Democratic Party than we do on the Republican side. So we're going to continue to work with people, candidates that support us. We will not be in the pocket of any party. We will be an independent voice for workers, and when they are right, we will support them, and when we think they are not right, we will not support them. I mean, I had no... the question is, what do you have to think? What do you think about the ILWU and the charge that they made that we didn't do enough about rating? It was tragic what happened and the way it happened. I had no conversations, no telephone calls, no nothing from the ILWU. A letter came in the mail saying we disaffiliate. That's tragic. A 3.5-page letter, 3 pages of it dealing with this union, that union did this and this and this. There's a constitutional procedure. It's called Article 20. They went through those procedures, and in most cases, an impartial umpire from the labor movement, not from business, made a ruling. Many times, I guess they don't like the ruling, and sometimes I guess I wouldn't like the ruling. But that's the procedure. But the question still is valid to this extent. Have we done enough to prevent raiding? And in some of those cases, they weren't raiding. They were disputes over, it was a work jurisdiction dispute that they ended up losing. And I'd answer this, you know, we intend to be far more aggressive in the future on the issue of raiding. We have 11 point something % of the workers are in a union. And instead of fighting over that 11.2 or 3%, we ought to be fighting over the 89% that's out there and trying to get them organized. Money spent when it's a true raid against one another is precious resources wasted, and I plan to be far more aggressive in trying to tame and I guess eliminate the notion of raiding.
Mark Schulenberger, Press Associates. I want to follow up on the previous question about the relationship with the non-union groups, particularly the environmental groups. The building trades this morning had a 3-hour meeting, for all we know it may still be going on, of their executive council, presumably to discuss what they call groups, letting in groups that quash building trades jobs. I'm wondering how you're going to work out that conflict.
Well, first of all, Mark, I don't know that your information is anywhere near correct.
I'm quoting
Because we have adopted in those committees now unanimously on the 3 committees. We've worked out all the details that we have. We've provided safeguards, and I don't think that their meeting today was about that issue. In those situations where we have a conflict with affiliated groups, we are going to work through those conflicts. Sometimes we won't, and as I said earlier, we will agree to disagree on all of those things. But here's what I do know. Going in a room and shutting yourself in, putting your hands over your ears and yelling, isn't going to get this done. And we're not going to have a labor movement that does that. We're going to try to open up to our progressive allies, and we're going to work through stuff. And yes, there will be problems, but we'll work through those problems. And it's just, and I don't know how more plain to be about it.